Good evening and welcome to Perspective. The broken promise of Doha. We'll be talking about the failure, as we know, of the talks between the Afghan Taliban and Pakistan delegation and the ramifications of it for the Afghan people particularly. When we look at the landscape of Afghanistan, it is littered with the plight of women and children. It is littered with those that suffer because of the high-handedness of the Afghan Taliban government. We will be talking about the plight of the people of Afghanistan who continue relentlessly to suffer at the hands of this rogue government that we see at this time. A little later on, we'll also be talking about, of course, the success of Pakistan at the United Nations, where the first committee of the 80th General Assembly adopted 4 Pakistan-sponsored resolutions focusing on disarmament, arms control and security measures. All of that today on Perspective. I have with me Asif Durrani, who is a former ambassador. We'll also be joined by Lieutenant General Raza M Khan, who's a former president of NDU. Thank you for being with us. Durrani sir, we know that the overtures Pakistan has made, we know that the kind of latitude that we have repeatedly given to the Afghan Taliban government for the people of Afghanistan, for the women of Afghanistan, for the children of Afghanistan. This failure, the way that it has happened, how do you look at it? I want particularly to take you to the statement by the Foreign Office, which said instead of finding solutions to address Pakistan's core concern, the Afghan regime used the opportunity to malign Pakistan through hypothetical accusations and jingoistic rhetoric. It prolonged discussions and engaged in futile arguments and to stonewall the efforts at reaching any concrete understanding. What I want to ask you is that who is the real loser here?
Thank you. Thank you, Mahrukh, for having me. We all know now it's almost for the past 2 weeks, every day we are discussing Afghanistan. And one thing which has come out clearly as far as Taliban are concerned and their rule is concerned, that they lack the art of governance. Yes, they may claim that they are in control of Afghanistan, but that is also becoming questionable because you may have seen the United Nations reports and other international human rights organizations reports which speak about the presence of terrorist groups inside Afghanistan, which incidentally Taliban deny. So they are in a denial mode. One, they don't have the know-how of how to govern, and secondly, they are in a denial mode that there's a problem. And when they deny it, so it creates further problems because when demands are raised by the neighbors such as Pakistan about the TTP, China about ETIM, the Uzbekistan about the Islamic movement of Uzbekistan, then also Al-Qaeda, ISKPs, they are very much, it's a formidable threat. And they are, in fact, taking action inside Afghanistan. ISKP has attacked Iran in Pakistan, Bajor area, and then in Moscow. So, and they are in denial mode. So, this is creating problem for us.
And so, when we talk about, of course, they are in denial mode. There's no denying that. But in terms of the effects, should these talks have succeeded, don't you think that it would have helped the Afghan Taliban government, sort of have the kind of stake they can have internationally? Because we know at this time that, they are isolated, quite frankly, on the international scene. Don't you think that's also an advantage that they don't seem to have foreseen out of these talks, among others, of course?
I wish they understood that. This is what I am trying to say, that they are in a denial mode. They don't want to learn. They don't want to learn the art of diplomacy. They are on negotiating table. They can't decide because they don't have an authority, because every authority is converged in the hands of one man in Kandahar. And so it has become a futile exercise, at least the past 3 sessions which took place in Doha and Istanbul. It has become clear that Afghan delegations have not come with clear mandate, and which is why that they could not take decision. While verbally they could say and they could agree, but they were shy of giving written guarantees about non-interference and about controlling the TTP. Yes.
But Asif sir, when we talk about international isolation, the effect of it on the people of Afghanistan, because of course we know that this is a land ravaged by war also. You know, we know there is the terrain also, we know the internal situation of Afghanistan. So when there is this refusal, which like you are saying, that there is an inability to recognize that they need this for their own people and their own children, do you think that itself, the cost of it, is there a mechanism to sort of, you know, for them to realize that the cost that they are paying, their people are paying, is something that inevitably will have to be borne by the Afghani people, and who is the real loser here? That is my question.
Well, they don't care about the people. Had this been the case, they would have long, in fact, sought assistance from the neighbors and international community as far as controlling terrorism is concerned. And if there is a problem inside the country, they say it's the will of the God. So they just can't do that. They have not done much about creating job opportunities. And in any case, right now, because international banking is not working in Afghanistan, so Afghan banks are unable to do normal businesses, which is why that it is only the neighbors of Afghanistan and Russia which are keeping Afghanistan going through barter trade and currency swap. But it is they are maintaining Afghanistan or keeping Afghanistan floating to the subsistence level, and it is upon the Taliban leadership to realize that they do not live in an island where no one would bother them. They are part of this community, international community, and they have to be sensitive enough about the sensitivities of the world, especially with regard to human rights. They are party to human rights conventions, and they just cannot shy away, and then they cannot just use the pretext of Islam to impose certain things which are even from the Islamic community point of view, they have rejected it and they have criticized it, such as ban on women's education or their right to vote. So these are the actually real problems. But the problem is that this is we are talking about Afghanistan, which is ultra conservative country, and there this change has happened. Unfortunately, the so-called Republican period of 2 decades could not deliver, and hence we are facing this dilemma. And unfortunately, Pakistan is also suffering because of the Taliban's non-cooperative attitude. Yes.
Right. Let me go to Lieutenant General Raza Khan, who's former president NTU. General sir, we know that, you know, the real losers in this battle are the people of the Afghanistan, the women, the children, who really have no say over this kind of high-handedness, the cost of it. But do you think that when we move forward, we also have a statement from the Afghan Taliban that yes, the ceasefire will continue. What do you see as the future of this now? Because of course, you know, Pakistan has quite frankly showed a lot of restraint. If we look at, you know, many years and the way that Pakistan has exercised restraint, the way that we've continually told them and spoken to them and used words, and now we've come to this juncture where, you know, we are where we are, and the cautious optimism is now replaced by this you know, this kind of like you said, you know, the talks having gone awry. So how do you look at this now?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. I think it is more important that the people of Afghanistan themselves are aware of what their present leaderships are doing to them. They are actually going through big disasters, and I think some commentators say that they may be ready, to undertake some kind of, political, politico-military suicide, as has been done in the past Taliban regimes. And when I say that, the people of Afghanistan need to realize that, over 60% of the other ethnic minorities have now been kept out of power for the last 5 years. The present Taliban regime has not honored, the Doha Agreement of 2020, where they had promised the international community that there will be intra-Afghan dialogue. That has not happened. And there is this one ethnic minority comprising less than 40% of the population of Afghanistan, which is directly responsible for the present instability, both political, economic, and in many other domains of Afghanistan, which is very unfortunate for the people of Afghanistan. There are very serious, structural flaws in their running of the present regime, because there are multiple independent or semi-independent, power centers, and there is political fragmentation. Uh, let's say we are not only talking of this fragmentation between the Kandahari group and the Haqqani group. But within those groups also, there are people, who are very unfriendly to Pakistan and very unfriendly to the future of Afghanistan itself. There is, lack of any well-defined or known politico-military structure or authority or a chain of politico-military command, which is normal, in any country or in any states. Their supreme leader is mainly concerned, with religious affairs, and he hardly, no country has, I think, except one or two.
Well, see, General Sahab, you mentioned, that they are only concerned with religious affairs. There's also, we asked them to, of course, for a religious decree saying that this kind of terrorism is not, is not allowed. And of course, they said that they could only pass guidelines according to, I'm saying as far as the talks are concerned that happened, and then they failed. Why do you think that there is this failure to do that, in your opinion?
Well, I think if you're talking of the religious edict or the fatwa, which was given, I think, about 6 or 7 months back by their supreme leader, I think they have thrown that to the dustbin. Because he had very clearly stated that if there are any attacks outside Afghanistan by the residents of Afghanistan, then this is not jihad. But nobody is listening to him. And I think he needs to take this very, very seriously. And that is exactly what the government of Pakistan reminded them of, and asked them once again to follow the edict which has already been given. We have also seen, very clear tilt of the present regime toward India, very unfriendly attitudes, to Pakistan, with twisted narratives of their state-owned media in itself. And when we are talking of an unrepresentative government, then I think there will be, I think, undercurrents within Afghanistan itself, which would lead perhaps to a change of regime for better for Afghanistan and its own people. If the present regime continues, with this disastrous path, which is being seen not only by Pakistan, but by the rest of the world and the region itself, I think.
Me, on that note, let me take Durrani Saab's opinion on this. Durrani Saab, do you think that that kind of change is imminent within Afghanistan that General Saab is talking about, if it, of course, the present leadership continues along this path?
Well, change in Afghanistan is you can expect it any time because we are witnessing instability in the country for the past 46 years, ever since the communist coup took place in 1978 and then followed by Soviet invasion of Afghanistan. So that is possible. And in any case, there are simmering unrests within the country about amongst the non-Pashtun strata of the society. Ethnic minorities also are not satisfied. That's a fact of life. And inclusivity is a problem because major ethnic groups like Tajiks, Uzbeks, Hazaras, Turkmens, they are not duly represented in the government. And then more importantly, they themselves call it as an interim Afghan government. So, so everything is in a limbo, it's in a fluid condition. And then the way they are conducting their business, one should not comment on that. That's their job to address it, but certainly it would cause problems. And more importantly, the poverty graph has increased with the arrival of the Taliban. And almost, UN statistics show around 97% people suffer from poverty, and out of which 50% of the population is actually dependent on international assistance. And I have said it earlier also that international assistance is also dwindling very fast. And that would, in fact, force the people to leave their country. And I'm afraid that then Pakistan would be the most sought after destination if past is a history. If history is a guide for us to see. So here
Ambassador, there's also something that was said by the statements that have come from the Foreign Office, that more than this being an issue of capability, it is about intent. And the way that these, Pakistan's intent that this should go forward, our strong expectation, of course, cautious optimism. The way that this has happened is also really, really, reeking of foreign actors' involvement also, who've been, who are wanting to stroke this into and make it into this region. As far as Pakistan is concerned particularly also, but overall, create tensions within the region. And that is a factor that, of course, Pakistan can't ignore. You agree with that?
The problem is that Taliban are still in a fighting mode. They are still in a guerrilla mode. And they have to make themselves believe that they are a government. And if they are a government, they have to behave responsibly. This is the dilemma we are facing with them, whether on day-to-day basis, when you speak to them bilaterally, things do not move. And then something which has been told to them from the top, then they don't listen to it, they don't argue. And when you argue with them, they don't have the response. And when they come back with the response, again, you are back to square one. This is something which we are facing. I've faced myself as a Pakistan Special Rep for Afghanistan for almost a year and a half. So here, the problem is there. And it is, again, the political will is lacking. And actually, political maturity is almost non-existent as far as this ruling elite in Afghanistan is concerned. Yes.
Right. Thank you so much, Durrani Sahab. Thank you for your very valuable time. I'm to go to Jensab. Jensab, when we look at Pakistan and our trajectory of our relationship with Afghanistan, for the Afghan people, we have made positive gestures in terms of trade, humanitarian assistance, visa facilitation. We are looking at, on international forums, we've actually encouraged the international community to engage with the Taliban if we look at the past. These kind of actions are now being, have consistently, I would say, been met with little to no response. And now, this kind of rebuff when we say, and again, the intent that these talks should not succeed. How do you think the mediators are looking at this? Because of course, they invested a lot of their time and energy and of course, their real intent to ensure that the talks would lead somewhere.
Well, I think there are two significant aspects that the mediators, Pakistan, and the people and the government of Pakistan must keep in mind. The first one is obviously, the other options available to tackle the situation, and this includes, the diplomatic incentives or disincentives, economic incentives or disincentives, and also, the consistent Pakistani support of the current Afghan regime, at the regional and at the international level. We have given them the, most favored nation status as far as trade is concerned, and we are tolerating, a lot of, intransigence, and frankly speaking, the people of Pakistan uh, are of the opinion that they are ungrateful. The government is ungrateful, for what all we have been doing for them. And in response, they have given us uh, instability and terrorism, which is not acceptable either to the people or the government of Pakistan. It should not be acceptable to the Pakistan or Afghanistan regional partners, particularly China, Russia, Qatar, Turkey, and I would say the entire OIC, which now needs to come and exert its influence, openly on the present Afghan regime, that they change their attitude, and if they do not, then obviously there will be consequences for that, both for the Afghan regime and unfortunately also for the people of Pakistan. But I say, look at it optimistically, that for the first time, I think we have communicated our deep concerns. We have communicated, whatever evidence we had of terrorism emanating from Afghanistan to the right people. And the right, when I say the right people, it is their Minister of Defense, it is their Interior Ministry, it is their head of the intelligence. Previously, I think probably we were dealing with people who did not matter as much. And I think the very fact that the present Afghan government has openly given two other options which were rightly rejected by us, and that was of relocating the TTP and other terrorists to northern Afghanistan. And there was even, one suggestion that these people may be actually, in a way extradited out from Afghanistan. Where would they be extradited? It was not known. Now, both these, commitments or suggestions have now proved that these people are there. Previously, they have been totally in a denial mode. Now they have themselves.
But isn't it true that General Saab, they're also trying to portray the TTP, FAK, BLA, FAH elements as refugees in Afghanistan? This is, of course, this is not a humanitarian or a refugee issue at all. So, this attempt to change reality, it's really, showing that there is malice involved. There's no intent, there was really no intent that the talks would succeed. And that now that we are looking at them trying to change this narrative, change the reality, it clearly shows that there's clear malice coming from that side of the border.
Absolutely, I think it's very deceitful, which actually contradicts what their purported belief system is, that of the tenets of Islam. And if they're deceiving, another Muslim country, then I think that is very, very unfortunate. And I think they need to understand that this kind of relationship of with Pakistan is going to hurt them more than I think than Pakistan. And we are also aware that Pakistan has very clearly now indicated to them that they will have to choose between the terrorists and between Pakistan. And if they, choose the terrorists, then obviously, all the incentives that Pakistan has given them will abruptly turn into disincentives. And at the same time, I think we will take out all those terrorists which now they have admitted, whose presence they have admitted, whether they are on our soil, whether they are on Afghan soil, or whether they are anywhere else, including their patrons, their hideouts, wherever they are. And if that leads to cross-border action by Pakistan, then the present Afghan interim government will be directly and totally responsible for that.
You're right. They will be responsible for the plight of their own people if this is how they have chosen to engage with a country like Pakistan, a neighbor like Pakistan. There's no doubt about that. But moving forward, when we look at this time, militarily speaking, in your experience, of course, the ceasefire, I think both sides have agreed that is going to continue to stay in place. But in your opinion, how steady is this ceasefire going to be? And of course, militarily, the kind of cost that the people of Afghanistan will continue to pay. That is something that remains looming on the horizon for everyone, and Pakistan would not be happy about it, of course.
A ceasefire, I think it's a very, very delicate ceasefire. They need to understand that. And I think we have communicated it to them in no uncertain terms that if there is another terrorist attack from Afghan soil inside Pakistan, and if it is traced back to the TTP or the BLA or others, then Pakistan will respond at the time and place and manner of its own choosing. And then once that happens, then this ceasefire will become totally meaningless. So they need to take these, ultimatums, these warnings very, very seriously for their own sake and for the sake of their people. And when they're talking of these TTPs being, Pakistani refugees, then they must immediately return them to us as we are returning the Afghan refugees to them so that we can deal with them in accordance with the Pakistani laws. This is, what our official stance was that they either, punish them themselves, take actions against them themselves, prevent them from attacking Pakistani sovereignty, or hand them over back to us so that we can take action against them. And the sooner that they do that, the better it would be for them as well as for Pakistan and for the regional peace and stability.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for being with us, Efrajil Raza Khan. Thank you for joining us. We're going to be moving on. We have with us Munir Akram, who's former representative of Pakistan UN. Thank you so much for being with us. Mr. Akram, how do you see this, of course, as far as these UN resolutions on disarmament and arms control, how do you see them strengthening regional peace and stability at this time?
As you know, we moved 4 resolutions, and we have been taking these initiatives for the last 20 years or so. One of our resolutions, which is a global resolution, calls for negative security assurances from the nuclear powers to the non-nuclear weapon states. And Pakistan has submitted a draft convention in the government in Geneva to adopt such security assurances. And so our resolution is annual in the General Assembly, and it is adopted unanimously, and we will persist in that effort. The other three resolutions we have tabled relate to regional disarmament and regional arms control. And it is our thesis that arms proliferation, arms races originate because of regional disputes and tensions. And therefore, these must be addressed not only at the global level, but also at the regional level. So we first proposed the resolution on regional disarmament. Later, we made a specific proposal on conventional disarmament in the regional context because unless you control conventional arms, they will lead to conventional conflicts. And if these conflicts are between nuclear powers, they could escalate. So we proposed the resolution on conventional disarmament in the regional context. And later, after the nuclear explosions by India and Pakistan, we then made a proposal for a mutual restraint regime to India. And when India rejected this, we moved this in the General Assembly in order to call upon all powers to undertake confidence-building measures in the regional context. And this is also very specific to our concerns vis-a-vis India. India has special threats to South Asian security because on the one hand, it is arming itself, both conventionally and with nuclear weapons. Secondly, its nuclear and military doctrines are very hostile. Cold Start is one of those doctrines. Another one is the concept of a limited war under the nuclear overhang, which they have proposed. It's another dangerous concept. And there is no communication between India and Pakistan except the military directorates level. And this is a highly dangerous situation between India and Pakistan, especially now at this stage when the threats are emerging from India, when it is arming itself, it is conducting exercises along our borders. These are dangerous situations, and therefore we hope that the international community will take note, utilize Pakistan's initiatives in order to build some structures for arms control and for peace and security in our region.
Mr. Akram, how are you viewing these resolutions being taken up in the light of recent statements that are coming, against Pakistan, against our nuclear program from across the border? And of course, the isolation recently that we've also seen India face internationally. How do you think they're being taken across the border?
Well, these resolutions have been proposed by Pakistan for several years now. And the object of the proposals is to convince the world, to convince India to enter into dialogue, arms control and confidence building dialogue with Pakistan, to adopt some measures for strategic restraint so that our conflicts do not escalate. But India has so far ignored it. Now, at this stage, it has suffered a military reversal, and therefore it's adopting a very hostile posture. But precisely for that reason, these resolutions are important as an indicator of international support for Pakistan's approach to regional arms control, for Pakistan's approach to security and stability in South Asia. It is an indication of international support, and we should build on that support in order to put pressure on India to act responsibly.
An endorsement of our successful diplomacy across the world. When we see, like you said, that they've been proposed for a while, but them to be taken up at this point really shows that there has been, Pakistan's diplomatic success all around is a resounding one.
Yes, of course, we have the support of the international community, both for our arms control initiatives, even for our specific proposals to India in order to de-escalate tensions. We have proposed several specific ideas, specific suggestions, but India has so far ignored them. And we hope that the major powers, United States, Russia, China, they have all indicated support for our initiatives, and we hope that they will exercise their diplomatic influence in order to convince the Indians that pursuing a coercive approach towards Pakistan, pursuing a threatening approach towards Pakistan is not likely to be positive, could lead to very dangerous consequences because both countries are nuclear armed countries.
In terms of resolutions, we do know, and I think in your experience, I'm sure you would have a better idea that India has flagrantly disregarded resolutions from time to time. We know the Kashmir resolutions. In your opinion, what is the persuasive power at this time of these resolutions for India, considering our importance at the world stage at this time?
Well, the resolutions of the General Assembly are different from the resolutions of the Security Council. The resolutions on arms control disarmament, which we have put forward and which have been adopted by the First Committee of the Assembly, these are General Assembly resolutions, and they have recommendatory authority, do not have binding authority. So here, the effort is to persuade India. And to persuade India through support from the international community that it must act in a responsible way, undertake arms control negotiations, undertake mutual restraint measures. And this is the effort that we continue to make in the General Assembly year after year, and we have done so again this year. Secondly, as far as the Kashmir resolutions are concerned, those are Security Council resolutions. And Security Council resolutions are binding, and this is specifically stated in Article 25 of the UN Charter, which states simply that all decisions of the Security Council will be implemented by all member states. And therefore, those resolutions are binding, and our effort is to secure the support of the Council and the international community for the implementation of those resolutions, which are binding resolutions.
Particularly, like I said, the persuasive power of these current resolutions, considering our importance on the international scene, don't you think that should make some difference? Or you think that, India will continue to look the other way? We know what their past is, we know what they're doing, it's Modi's India, extremist India, Hindutva, considering all that.
Yes, I suspect that the Modi regime is an extremist government, and they will continue to adopt a hostile posture until they become convinced that it is in India's interest to achieve dialogue and peace and stability with Pakistan. And I think any rational actor will be able to determine that should be the case. And India should establish stability and security with Pakistan, because its own security will continue to be fraught until it has security and stability with its neighbors. And its neighbors are Pakistan, India, Pakistan, China, Bangladesh. And it has very disturbed relations with all of them.
Mr. Akram, when we talk about leveraging international support, how do we do that to ensure that arms control frameworks, for example, are effectively implemented at this time? Do you think that, of course, like you said, keeping in mind the region, keeping in mind a neighbor like India, all of that, do you think that there's a chance at this time for us to leverage that kind of international support?
Yes, well, obviously, we should be utilizing the adoption of these resolutions to go to all the major capitals of the world and to tell them that these resolutions, although they are recommendatory, that there should be action, there should be some specific action to implement them. We can raise the question of implementing these resolutions in the Conference on Disarmament, which meets in Geneva. This is a major principal disarmament body. We can raise them in the Disarmament Commission, which meets under the General Assembly. We can raise them bilaterally and regionally in all forums. These resolutions set the benchmark and the framework for regional stability, and we should utilize them fully in order to secure as much support as we can, specifically from various governments, and thereby pressure India to accept their framework.
Where do you see the most support coming from, considering our relationship with countries at this time, considering, our balancing act with, China, USA, Saudi Arabia, all over? Where do you think the most support will come from, in your opinion?
Well, at the political level, of course, two of these resolutions have been adopted unanimously, and two have been adopted with large majorities. So we already have a considerable support in the international community for these resolutions. Now, as far as the implementation is concerned, obviously the major powers will play a key role in securing implementation, in influencing India. And we should be talking, obviously, we would expect support from China, we would expect support from Russia. We should also make an effort with the United States to get their support, France, the United Kingdom. They are also permanent members of the Council. We should be seeking support from regional countries such as Bangladesh, Iran, and others, in order to build up a climate in which India will be obliged to respond to these resolutions and to come to a state where it would agree to a rational dialogue in order to build security and stability in our region.
Thank you so much, Mr. Akram. Thank you for your very valuable input. Of course, we hope that India will see sense. We hope, as Mr. Akram said, we've had, of course, unanimous support for some and a huge majority supporting the rest of these resolutions. Of course, that shows the kind of support Pakistan has on the international scene at this time to be able to perhaps, indicate to India that they must play ball with regard to coming forward and ensuring that the region itself can stay safe, and that Pakistan's responsibility to our nuclear policy, our regional stability is echoed by these resolutions, and of course the international support by the adoption of them. Thank you so much for joining us today on Perspective.